Hello, everyone, and welcome to 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio. I'm your host this morning, Logan Landers, and today we're going to be highlighting NFL draft prospect DeMarvin Leal, the defensive tackle from Texas A&M University with the Aggies. And I can't do it by myself. I got to bring on my amazing special guest, the guy that you've become very welcome here on the show each and every week, breaking down these prospects. And what better way to learn about these prospects than from a former NFL draft scout with the New York Jets. Also a critically acclaimed author. His book, Whatever It Takes, available anywhere books are found on Amazon. Amazing story of trials, tribulations, heartbreak, and happiness. Please go and check it out and support our amazing special guest. And also go check out his writing as well, Sports Illustrated for the Jets and for the Lions, and also his amazing work on NFL Draft Diamonds. Of course, the one, the only, Daniel Kelly. How you doing this, man?
Hey, Mr. Landers, I'm doing well, thank you. How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Just enjoyed the holidays, of course. The Christmas spirit still flowing going into the year 2022 coming up, man. And I can't wait to talk about DeMarvin Leal. But before we get started, I want to make sure that everyone, hey, if you like this video, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you're watching us live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. It means the world to us. Also, check out our podcast at 100 Yards of Football. Almost 600 episodes now with daily uploads of amazing content, whether it's more draft prospects, whether it's amazing game previews, history specials, legend interviews, you name it, you can find it over there at the podcast. So, DK, before we get started, we want to give out our condolences here at 100 Football, the entire family, to the friends, the family of John Madden, the legendary coach for the Oakland Raiders, passed away, unfortunately, last night in Pasadena, California, at the age of 85. So a tremendous head coach. As you know, I'm a big Raiders fan, so this one hit me close to home. Amazing guy. It seems like everyone loved him. A lot of people know him from the video games, of course, with the Madden franchise, but what a great coach he was and a great person. DK, do you have any special stories or any thoughts you want to share about the unfortunate passing of John Madden?
Yeah, my condolences as well go out to the family and friends and everybody in the football world this morning. Truly a legend, and not just because he broadcast games, but because how he broadcast games. I grew up with him, watching him Thanksgiving, the turducken that he introduced on the sidelines, and just a very special individual. In a very different. Him and Summerall were very different. Whereas a lot of guys today they talk over fans' heads. I think that probably about 90% of the fans don't know what an RPO is. I just learned what it was not too long ago myself. They talk about orbit routes, wheel routes. A lot of common fans don't know what those things are, and I don't blame them. I'm learning what a lot of that stuff is too. But a lot of times the broadcasters talk over people's heads, or like the other night in the Washington-Dallas game, just seemed like Collinsworth had a real bias and a slant towards Dallas, but that was never the case with Madden and Summerall. They were unbiased, they were entertaining, they were educational, and they were extremely comforting to listen to. They'll be very missed. EA Sports, it's in the game. My brother grew up with Madden. I grew up playing with him, and truly he'll be missed. Truly a legend and one of a kind, John Madden.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Hey, Heaven has a heck of a commentary team now with Pat Summerall and with John Madden once again, man. I saw stories that he was one of the first commentators to broadcast on on all of the major four networks at the time, and also his predictions for Monday Night Football. I believe he did about 12 of them. He was 10-1-1. So what better way to get some insight than listen to the great John Madden? And like we said, condolences to his friends and families. He will be sorely missed here in the football world. All right, DK, let's get into it. Our bread and butter for today, DeMarvin Leal, the defensive tackle from Texas A&M. So being a former draft scout, man, what do you like about this guy? Where do you see him projecting, and how do you think he's going to do in the NFL?
Absolutely, Mr. Landers. Thank you. I mean, this guy is a big guy, as you can see on your screen. A big, thick guy. He's a big, thick, bubble legs. His calves, his ankles. He's got a lot of girth to him. He stands at 6'4", 291. And when I went back, and of course, like we always talk about on this show, I'm accountable to the tape, the game film that I'm watching on this guy. I watched him in 2021 against LSU, against Ole Miss, and against Arkansas. This guy's versatile. one of his greatest strengths is being versatile. They move him all around the defensive line. They flip-flop him at ends. They move him inside the both tackle spots. So when you're watching the film, especially on a sideline angle, it's harder to find out where he is because he wears that little number 8. So you're like looking at the screen, like like where is he? But he's very versatile. Now on December 13th, PFF Pro Football Focus, what they had is they had him rated as a first-round draft pick, going to the Colts at number 21. And I tell you guys, if this guy is a first-round pick, then I'm an astronaut. I mean, that's and a matter of fact, I just learned the other night. I had a debate with my wife Samantha. I said the night sky is black. She says actually blue, and she pulled it up online and showed me the night sky is actually blue, but it looks black. So long story, but yeah, that was interesting. Like I had no idea. But so obviously I'm not an astronaut. But DeMarvin Leal, what he is, Mr. Landers, to me and my 40 years of being around the game is in watching it, is that he's a textbook workout warrior. This guy is going to be awesome at his pro days, his workouts, because he has the ability. Let me make that clear. But my message to NFL teams, my message to owners and general managers who may be listening, or somebody who knows some of these guys who may be listening that can tell them, turn on the game tape, because what this guy is, he's a classic flasher, as we call it in the scouting world. Once in a blue moon, he'll turn it on, he'll flash that ability, but 80 to 90% of the plays, the guy is like a ghost on the field, a very soft ghost on the field. His two greatest attributes, again, the versatility I touched on and his strength. This guy has pure weight room, brute strength. This guy has a lot of power behind him in his frame. He's very naturally strong, but don't get too carried away with that, because really DeMarvin Leal plays what I call uninspired football. Yes, he flashes a lot of ability, but only once in a great while. Most of the time he looks strong, but sluggish. He's more of if I had to put him somewhere, really, Mr. Landers, I think I would put him into our listeners. I would put him as a 3-4 defensive end. I mean, he's right in that sweet spot for the size that you want for a 34 end in the NFL, which is about between 285 and 310. This guy comes in right inside that range at 6'4", 291. So he fits that mold as a 34 end. And of course, what that is, just so our listeners understand, like as I was being critical of some of the announcers that don't unpack things and explain things. When the 34 end is a lot different than a 43 end. A 34 end is meaning 3 down defensive linemen, 4 linebackers, and a 43 is 4 down linemen, 3 linebackers. And defensive ends are asked to do something very different in both schemes. In a 34, the ends are asked to hold the point of attack against tackles where linebackers can scrape in and make the plays, whereas a 43 end is primarily looked at as being a source of pass rushing. This guy is much more of a 34, a 3-4 defensive end that can hold the point. I probably would put him in the 4th or maybe even 5th round as a 34 end. I know a lot of people have this guy rated as a first-round guy, as a 4-3 end, probably 5th, 6th round, somewhere in there. But let's talk about let's unpack him as a player so people and fans really know what I'm seeing, and I only talk about what I see on game film. I don't make stuff up, or it's no personal bias one way or another. I want to see all these guys succeed. Of course, I don't want anyone to fail, but these guys really put their own body of work on film. So let's talk about briefly against the pass. We want to talk about first his strengths as a football player. He does have ability to bull rush. When I say bull rush, I mean just go straight into the offensive tackle and just put him on skates, as we call it in scouting, and drive an offensive lineman back into the pocket towards the quarterback. He does have that natural kind of power that comes from his lower part of his body and his legs. Very strong lower body. He flashes some burst in the pocket from time to time. He does show that once in a while. He flashes a fast swim move at times. Swim move is when he goes back to the inside, coming off the end. He flashed a spin move a couple of times. And, once in a while he can work his way through the back door, but not that often. Notice how I keep saying the word flashed, Mr. Landers. And so it's in him. It's in him. So, I mean, I'm not sitting here saying the guy's just a dud and, because anybody can put together a highlight tape and there's probably some of them out there on YouTube. Yeah, I mean, you can make this guy look like Superman if you put about 12, 15, 20 plays on the tape. The guy looks like he's the next great defensive lineman. But you have to take a closer look. You have to look at all the game tape. Now, weaknesses as far as pass rush, I felt Mr. Landers, I felt he had a very slow first step. Majority of the time, he got very easily handled at the point of attack, at the point of initial contact is what the point of attack is. He did just not show a lot of fight, and that's something that really bothered me. He gave up too easily. He got handled way too much, neutralized at the line of scrimmage way too much, showed rigidity in his hips. He has no explosiveness at the point of attack. He just really did not look into it, which is my major concern. About 75% of the snaps I charted and watched him on, he just looked like he was just kind of going about, just dancing around and not really that into it. There's just nothing fast about this guy most of the time in his play. Again, I keep going back to it. He does flash some ability, but this guy's really a lazy pass rusher. He turns it on really when it's easiest, when he has a clean shot or he has a quarterback in his crosshairs on, with nobody in front of him. Then he turns it on. Then he's all about it. But the rest of the time, when he has to face the challenge of a blocker, he's not. Now, against the run, this is the other, half the equation that teams would look at him. The positives, this guy's a limited area run defender, meaning it's got to be right around him or around his lane for him to have any chance to make the play. Occasionally can crash down laterally on a parallel basis and luck into a tackle. But he's average at holding the point of attack. Again, if you have him in a 3-4 defensive end spot, he can do an average job at holding the point, some of the time for you. The negatives, he gets moved off the ball way too often for a big guy, a strong guy. I was disappointed at how often he got moved out of the ball area, moved off the ball, moved away. The running back went right past him. He gave up. He gave up. He didn't even try in some plays. I saw him jogging. I saw running backs go right past him. He didn't even try to dive for a tackle. Seemed to be pretty disinterested, to be honest with you guys, against the run. And inconsistent at the use of hands. Sometimes he just hits him with his shoulder and his shoulder pads. He didn't show like he had that good a technique to be able to take on and shed blocks and get himself in position in the hole. Tightness, again, rigidity, going back to that. He just could not adjust quickly enough. Sometimes a running back gave him a quick move and was gone. Slow reacting at times, inconsistent shedding blocks, as I mentioned. With the 34 defensive end, a 3-4 and 3-down lineman, 4 linebacker scheme, is his best chance because he has the size and the weight again, guys, to and the pure strength to play the position, but he just does not have what it takes from the neck up. 75 to 80%, 85% of the plays really was sluggish coming off the snap, borderline embarrassing at times, seemed completely disinterested. Know what you're getting. If you're a team right now that's looking at DeMarvin Leal, know what you are getting. If you can live with a guy that gives you 3-4 plays a game from that spot, then he's your guy. Otherwise, he's just clearly Mr. Landers. He's not on my draft board. This guy's a low energy guy. No, thank you. Really, this guy, in my opinion, is a bust waiting to happen. And I understand before we went on the air, Mr. Landers, that he didn't help himself the other day either. If you want to share with our listeners what happened with him.
Yeah, of course. So it came out a couple of days ago that on December the 18th, DeMarvin Leal was actually arrested in Collin County, Texas. He was charged with possession for less than 2 ounces of marijuana on him. So being, like you said, you already don't have him on your draft board, but for all the other scouts out there for potential NFL teams, do you think how is this going to affect his draft stock? Will this make him drop a little bit lower? What would you say about that?
Well, marijuana use has obviously become pretty popular and pretty well known for a number of reasons. So it's not like it was but at the same time, it's concerning. It's concerning that he got arrested. It's concerning that he's this reckless and careless, in my opinion, as we're closing in on the draft. It's when you see, Bill Parcells, who hired me, used to say something to the guys at the end of practice every day, the team. he'd say, don't go where you're not, not wanted, and stay out of the newspapers. And so, when this guy is getting himself in the paper for the wrong reason, on top of all the things that are going on with him on the field, what this really does is give teams a chance to sit down, look him in the eyes in the interview process, and ask him questions about it. Is this just something that's very purely recreational? Is this a bigger problem? Was it a one-off? What is this? Because really, character, to your point, Mr. Landers, is about a big part of this evaluation process. So he definitely did not help himself getting arrested.
Yeah, with the draft coming up in just a few short months, like I said, this isn't helping him. I don't think it's going to be a death sentence by any means necessary.
No.
It wasn't like this was, hard drugs or anything like that. I know that I'm sure that out there are going to be some owners, some scouts that are going to be frowned upon it. That's just how it is. But I think that overall with DeMarvin Leal, like you mentioned, he has great size. He's going to be a champion at the combine. That's what a lot of people are going to look at and say, this guy is going to be a stud. This guy's going to get 20 sacks in a year. He's going to get all these tackles because he has just the physical attributes. And like you mentioned, when he has those spurts of electricity, he looks great. But it's just the whole thing of can he kindle that, and can he make it into the entire package? And like you said, we've seen a laundry list of guys come from college and they have impressive highlight reels. They look good in just a few short spurts like that. But when they get to the NFL, things change. It's a lot tougher. And sometimes, right, we've seen that if you do succeed in your first couple of seasons, you get that big contract. And then what happens, right? Then you see it's like, all right, well, I got my money. Might as well just take the rest of the year off and just chill. So hopefully, like I said, hopefully that is not the case with DeMarvin Leal. We'll see if he's in the right system, right? Because sometimes the right coach can really change a player, change his mindset. And he's still real young, guys. This is a guy in college. He still has a lot to learn. So I think overall, yes, he does have some good size. There is some things he needs to work on. But I do think that if given the right system and given the right team, he could be a very solid defensive tackle in the NFL. I'm not saying he's going to be a 15-time Pro Bowl or anything crazy like that, but I could see him being in the league for a couple of seasons, and you'd see him on SportsCenter maybe a time or two getting a good sack. So, Mr. Daniel Kelly, please give me your final thoughts on DeMarvin Leal before we wrap things up here this morning.
Well, Mr. Landers, you make a lot of good points there. There are teams that are going to fall in love with his pure athletic ability and size. Again, my encouragement is go back and watch the game film, as Tony Rosano said in the book I learned on growing up, Secrets of NFL Scout, that said the film doesn't lie. But you make a lot of good points, and I think that's why, as I talked about, if you're interested in him, maybe you do take him, in the third, fourth, fifth round. Those are the rounds where you're not going to hurt yourself as bad. Those are more developmental rounds, to your points that you made, that maybe there's some potential there that can, somebody can bring out of them. But I mean, if you take this guy in the first round, that's a huge investment. Taking a player in the first round is like marrying somebody. I mean, your entire legacy, your entire career, your entire resume is attached to first round draft picks when you're a general manager. So that's a huge risk and a huge gamble that I personally would not take. But again, to your point, third, fourth, fifth round, bring him in. Maybe he turns on, maybe he doesn't. It's not the end of the world if he doesn't. I personally, again, want to take the chance with him because I'm not seeing enough on film to support it. But yeah, I mean, there's always that possibility that. But again, the big contract. I mean, if this guy is playing like this against teams like LSU, Ole Miss, and Arkansas, what's he gonna be like against the Giants and the Packers and the 49ers? So that's my main concern.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely see what Mr. Leal can do. He has potential, like we said, that if we see it in short bursts, but can he get it all together and make a complete NFL player? Only time will tell. Like you said, the combine's coming up in just a little bit. He's going to show out there. I have no doubt about that.
Absolutely.
They're going to see him bench pressing a lot. They're going to see his good foot speed a little bit. So I think that's going to help his draft stock and also help kind of get rid of the stigma around the marijuana charge, I think, a little bit. So I think that overall, like you said, I think this is more of a project piece. I'm not saying that he is a bad player, obviously, because he is going to get drafted in the NFL. But I'm in agreement with you. I think that maybe a third to fifth round talent for this guy, because he does show acceleration. He does show speed and power. but it's just not 100% there all the time. And I think, like I said, given the right system, given the right teammates, given the right coaches, we could see him work his way up to a very solid NFL player. But I don't see potential in any Hall of Famers, a whole bunch of Pro Bowls. I'm not seeing that quite yet. But hey, who knows? Things could change. That's what we're here to do on the show. We're just here to break down what we see in the college film and how we think he's going to project in the 2022 NFL draft. So if you guys have enjoyed this content here this morning, please, hey, also thank you for tuning in, watching us live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Also, please go check out our podcast at 100 of Football. We are available anywhere podcasts are able to listen to, like on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, anywhere and everywhere with podcasts. We have amazing stuff up there each and every day, anywhere from 15 minutes up to an hour, just depending on who we're talking about or who we're talking to. So please go check us out over there and leave a review. To my amazing co-host, Mr. DK from Key West, Florida, Daniel Kelly, thank you so much for coming on the show and breaking down NFL draft prospect DeMarvin Leal, the defensive tackle from Texas A&M. Go Aggies. We'll be right back with another great live video. We'll see you then.